meeting of the Nantucket Historical Commission to order. I have this script, which I guess I'm still supposed to read. I'll rush through it. So this is Hillary Hedges-Rayford, the chair of the Historical Commission. I'm going to confirm that everyone anticipated is here and can hear me. So I'm going to call all of your names. And if you could just sort of wave or give a thumbs up that you can hear me. I see David Silver.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, Nikki Rowland.
Here.
Our staff support, Holly Backus. I know there's Holly, great. You can hear me, Holly. George Raisman. Clement Durkees.
I can hear you. I can hear you, Hillary.
Hi, Tom Montgomery. Hey, Don DeMichelle. Great, and Angus McLeod.
Hi, Hillary.
Hi. So I didn't hear back from Ben Norman. I'm not sure if he's joining us. And Susan Handy said that she would be trying to join us. So we might see pop in. And it sounds like, according to Holly, we might have a guest regarding the Vineyard Wind. So we'll see if that person shows up. So this open meeting of the Nantucket Historical Commission is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth for COVID-19. And to mitigate transmission, we've been advised and directed to suspend public gatherings, and as such, the order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location, and all members of public bodies are allowed to and encouraged to participate remotely. The order, which you can find posted with the agenda, materials for this meeting, allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment, and the meeting will be recorded and posted on the town website. And all attendees are participating by video conference. Sometimes Ben calls in, so we might have someone on the phone. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you, and take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. All supporting materials that have been provided members of this body are available on the town website unless otherwise noticed. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless I know otherwise. We're turning to the first item on the agenda. Before we do so, some ground rules to afford for effective and clear conduct of our business and ensure accurate meeting minutes. I will introduce each speaker on the agenda, and after they conclude their remarks, I will go down the line of members, inviting each by name to provide any comment, questions, or motion. Please hold until your name is called. Further, please remember to mute your phone or computer when you are not speaking, and please remember to speak clearly in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. For any response, please wait until I yield the floor to you and state your name before speaking. If members wish to engage in a conversation with other members, please do so through the chair to compare to identify yourself. So after everyone spoke, well, we don't. If people want to speak, please raise your hand, and we'll be sure that you get a chance to speak to everyone. Okay, and every vote will be taken by roll call vote. All right, so let's get started. And as I'm just pulling up the agenda. For the first matter, I want to confirm that we do have a quorum, and I want to invite anyone who's here for public comment to go ahead and make a public comment. Do we have any public comment?
No, Madam Chair, I just want to let you know that Susan just attended.
Okay, hi Susan. When you get a chance, let us know that you can hear us and we can hear you. Looks like you're still joining by audio. Hi Susan. Great. All right, Holly, thank you for pulling up the agenda. Susan, when you have a chance, just confirm that you can hear us. You give us a thumbs up. Great. Okay. All right. So, are there any comments, additions, changes to the minutes of the meeting of June 26th?
I move you accept the minutes as submitted.
Okay, Well-
Hillary, was Susan at that meeting?
Susan was at the beginning of the meeting. Is that right, Susan, that you were at the beginning of the meeting? We can't hear you.
I think she was. I'll make those changes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so can I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I just did.
Okay, Tom, second.
Second.
That was Clement. Thank you, Mickey. Okay, Don. Angus.
Aye.
Susan
Aye.
and David,
Aye.
Georgia,
Aye.
and I'm I. Thank you. All right, so the minutes are approved. All right, well, the first thing we need to do is officially welcome Susan, who is appointed. Susan, have you been able to be sworn in?
Yes.
Oh, great. Terrific. Well, we're so happy to have you, and we're very happy to have Georgia and David back as commissioners. Thank you for sticking with us. And we get to celebrate 1 year together.
A very meaningful year, I have to say, Hillary. We did not go unnoticed in that year.
Yeah, I think we had a good year, and I think this next year is going to be an even better year.
Yeah.
So we need to elect a chair. So if someone wants to make a motion for whoever.
I would move that we elect Hillary Hedges report to be our chairman for the next ensuing year.
Second.
Thank you, Georgia. Okay, all in favor? Clement,
Aye.
Angus,
Aye.
Mickey,
Yes.
and Don. Don, was that a yes? Okay, we can't hear you, but I saw you say yes. And Susan,
Yes.
did I get everyone? David, did I get you? Yeah.
No,
Okay, and
aye.
okay, thank you.
Can
And
you hear me now, Hillary?
yes,
Hillary?
yes.
Okay, thanks.
And I'm a yes, and grateful for the opportunity, and thank you very much for your confidence. And I look forward to leading the group again for another year. So thank you. And we need a motion to elect a vice chair. I would like to make a motion, if I can, as the chair, to elect Angus.
Seconded.
Seconded.
Okay. All in favor, Mickey?
Yes.
Tom, you seconded. Don?
Yes.
Angus, do you accept?
Yes, thank you for the opportunity to serve as vice again.
Okay, well, you're not voted yet. Let me go through the list. I'm going in the order that I see you. Susan,
Yes.
David,
Aye.
Georgia,
Aye.
and Clement.
Yes.
Okay, I think I got everyone. Terrific. Well, Angus, thank you for serving again. And I would like to now ask for a motion to elect a secretary.
I nominate David Silver to be secretary.
Seconded.
Okay, Tom seconded. And Angus,
Aye.
Susan,
Aye.
Mickey,
Aye.
Georgia,
Aye.
Don,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. Did I call everybody?
Did David agree?
Yeah.
I humbly accept. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for serving.
Looking forward to serving again.
Great.
Great. Woohoo. Okay. Now we wanted to talk about a regular meeting time. It'll just make it easier for people to track what we're doing, have more advance notice, and be on the town calendar. We emailed about this earlier in the year, and we talked about the third Friday of the month. And Holly, you sent me some dates, which I have to tell you, in all honesty, I didn't review and think about, because I thought maybe you could just tell everybody if the third Friday of months going forward works. And also if everyone's still happy with the idea of 1 o'clock on the third Friday of the month, we can change this. So I'm viewing this as sort of the next 6 meetings. Of course, it's, you know, not set in stone, but speak now if it works or doesn't work.
I just wanted to check if anyone would be interested in a morning meeting where it's not in the middle of the afternoon, taking up the middle of the day. If other people think it's 1 o'clock is fine, then that's fine. I'm just asking a question.
Morning's better for me, but
I like that idea.
Me too.
So
I'm gonna have to,
What
if I may,
idea?
sorry, Hillary.
O'clock or the morning?
Yes, go ahead, Holly.
I'm gonna have to, I've already confirmed the dates for the NHC with town admin. Remember, we're still doing this by Zoom, and I have to make sure that those times are secure. Town admin has secured August 21st, September 18th, October 16th, November 20th, and December 18th. Those are all the third Fridays of the month. Now, if we're going to switch the time, I'm going to have to make sure that those time frames are still available.
And that can be done, and thank you for looking into this, Holly. I just want to mention, Don, that the reason why we've asked for afternoons is because when we meet in person, some people have to travel to the island. And sometimes they have to travel that morning. So that's how we ended up gravitating towards this kind of strange time. Certainly I will be here in August, but you know, hopefully the kids will be back in school at least by October. I might still be here. We might still be meeting by Zoom, in which case it wouldn't matter. But I'm just a little hesitant. But you know,
I knew there was a reason why we chose 1 o'clock way back when. So I am with Don. I would prefer to do it in the morning, but going forward, I think we might as well stick with 1 o'clock. And so one of our Friday afternoons is messed up, but every afternoon's the same these days.
it's fine with me.
As long as we're Zooming, is it possible to do the morning, and then if Zooming ends, then make it the afternoon again?
yeah, it sounds like everybody is asking to do it in the morning. And Holly, if you don't mind asking the town admin if the days are free, because you know we do have to do a little bit of back and forth to get things right for everybody.
So 10 a.m. is what you are all requesting?
What time
Yeah,
is everybody?
That'd be
10?
great, I think. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
I will
So,
have to confirm, but if we can confirm the days,
yeah,
that would be great.
that would be great. So I am going to look at my calendar personally, and if everybody else could do the same. So we're talking about 10 o'clock.
On August 21st.
Waiting for my calendar. Okay, August 21st at 10, September 18th at 10, October 16th at 10, November 20th at 10, and what was the December date? The 18th?
The 18th.
18th.
Anybody have an issue with any of those dates at 10 a.m.? Okay, hearing no issues, we'll check with town admin and confirm by email. Great. Okay, so Annual report, our review of the first year. So the town has requested all of the advisory committees to produce a report. The request for the report is in the packet. It's a, you know, a one-page report, and it should, there's a model because of course they're annual. It's the first one we've written, but other committees have written annual reports, and you can get a flavor of what they're about. They would like to have this by October. And let's see, is that what it says? Holly's pulling up the packet, but I was gonna ask if there is anybody who would be willing to make a draft of that report and take the lead on that.
And if I may just mention that this report is what you see in the annual town report that you received at town meeting. So a few people that went to town meeting this year should have received the copy for the previous.
I'm sorry, Holly, I didn't hear everything you said.
The annual town report is the same report that's received during town meeting.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an important report. It goes in a book, it's published.
Is there a prototype one can work from that's or are we starting from scratch here?
Well, I would recommend looking at the 2019 fiscal year annual report of the town and seeing what other committees do and commissions. But there's no like template that they gave us. All they gave us was this notice, which is in our packet.
I'm happy to take a look at that, Hillary, and then see if it's something that I can do.
I'd also be happy to assist with Georgia.
Thank you, David.
When does that have to be in, Hillary?
They're asking for it by October 2nd.
October 2nd.
And I mean, we'll all collaborate on it. We can edit it together. I just thought if somebody could like get the ball rolling with the draft, and maybe we could look at the draft either in August or we should probably look at it in August.
Well, I'll give it a first go. I'm very happy to have a lot of input from everybody else.
Thank you so much, Georgia.
Thank you, Georgia.
Well, we do have a sheet in our packet that says activities to date, which perhaps could be a starting point.
Yeah,
Priorities and goals and all that kind of thing.
yeah.
I was going to suggest that.
Yeah, and we have other things like the mission statement.
Yeah.
Okay, next on our agenda.
Madam Chair, if I may interrupt, I received an email back from town admin. Gotta love technology, and 10 a.m. is available.
Oh, great.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks, Holly.
Thank you so much, Holly.
You're welcome.
That was quick.
Yeah.
That's great.
Good, and now everybody's. Okay, so let's look at our mission statement. Holly, would you share my screen and I can pull up and we can talk about the mission statement?
You can go ahead and share your screen.
Okay. Okay, I have so many things open that it's a little hard for me to actually find the mission statement. Oh, here it is. Shit. Okay, so this is we had the mission statement that we worked on it at our last meeting, and we left it that I would make some, finalize it based on everybody's comments and present it to the HCC, which I did. And then I thought about it a little bit more, and I wanted to know what you all thought about these changes in red. And the reason for this is I think people are like, 1975, are you kidding me? I think there's a little bit of that going on. And I think it's helpful to explain why, which I took a stab at doing. So I'd love to hear comments on that.
That when the Beinecke period ended was in 1975?
According to the landmark document.
Yeah, okay.
The NHL documentation, the update goes to 1975 for a period of significance.
And just to be clear, they don't use the term Beinecke period. They use like a longer term. They haven't actually gone as far as saying this is the Beinecke period. What they said is Walter Beinecke, the Nantucket Historic Trust, and Sherburne and Associates, and then they have a date range ending in 1975. But when you talk to other people who study this time in history, like Marty Hilton at the University of Florida and Preservation Institute Nantucket, they talk about the Beinecke period. I think probably that's going to be a term people use. So I went ahead and used it in our statement. But, you know, this is a draft, so.
I think that's a good, I think that's a good and an accurate term to use.
I don't have any issues with the statement.
I don't either.
Me neither.
I like it.
Okay. Well, then I'm going to go through and ask each of you, and if anybody wants to make a comment, or you can just say, well, can I ask for a motion to approve this mission statement?
I'll make a motion.
Go ahead.
Second,
Okay, and who made the motion? Angus, was that you? Okay, Angus made the motion and Clement seconded. And I'm going to ask you, if you have any comments, you know, or concerns, please you don't feel like you need to say aye, you can raise your concern. So that would be Tom.
No, I have nothing to add.
Okay, so you're an aye.
I am an aye.
Okay, Susan,
Aye.
David,
Aye.
Nikki,
Aye.
Georgia, aye, and Don.
Yes.
And Holly, sorry, I should have asked if you had any comments about this before I voted, but I also thought you'd probably speak up. Did you want to say anything about this?
No, I think it's good.
Okay. All right, so all in favor, this will be our mission statement and statement of purpose and how we do what we do. And we will email Florencia and ask to have the website updated and make this National Historic Landmark a link. And I'm also going to suggest that we put that document in our list of useful documents in case people, you know, don't read our mission statement and they're just looking at that, they can see a link to that document. And Betsy Tyler let me know, I don't know if you recall, but I was saying, I only have this document because someone emailed it to me. I don't even know where it is on the internet, but it actually is in the Massachusetts Cultural Resource Information System, AKA MACRIS. It's listed in the database under Nantucket Island as a national landmark. So it actually, you can download it from MACRIS, which I think Holly should help you, you know, because people say, oh, well, it's not in MACRIS, but of course there's a long list of buildings associated with that survey, which is in MACRIS. People just don't find it under the address. Okay. Great. Well, I'm glad we have a mission statement. Okay, I have an update on the Streetscape study. we have our preservation engineer confirmed to come to the island on the 14th. This is the study that is was contracted for by private individuals, one of whom lives on Main Street, some of whom don't live on Main Street, but had an interest in seeing the historic pavement all throughout the district, the historic district, understood, and some preservation-oriented engineering recommendations about making cobblestone roads and making fixing sidewalk, rehabilitating the pavement. Holly and I have been working on a schedule for him. Unfortunately, because of COVID, we really have to be limited. I mean, I would love to have like a big meeting and he could talk to everybody, but we are limited in the walking tours to 6 people or less, and the like any kind of gathering outdoors as a group to 10 people. Holly, have you heard anything from Rob? No. Well, that's a little strange, but nonetheless, we have we have received confirmation that he's holding the day, and we're organizing the day. I will represent the NHC. Angus asked also if he could join, and Angus, I'm still putting the groups together, so I really have to see if there's room. So sorry for that. And Jason Bridges is going to join us for one of the walks, which I think is great. And different stakeholders like Mickey Brenda from the Commission on Disabilities will be able to come, right?
Brenda is going to be there, yes.
Okay, terrific. So, and Penn Austin will be there. Marty Hilton from the Preservation Institute Nantucket, who's leading the CPC funded study of the historic material as far as what the artifacts are and where they are and what the conditions. He's going to be there. So we're really looking forward to it. I haven't heard anything back from the letter that we sent to Rob about the condition of the street. I did take a photo of just a massive pothole where the cobblestones are actually not even in the road anymore, right at where Pleasant Street meets Main Street, but hopefully we'll be able to.
May I ask?
Yes.
When does that walk take place? You know,
the walk. Yes, it's going to be Tuesday of next week.
Okay.
And to accommodate different people, but also, I mean, this isn't just for us to hear from Matthew, it's for Matthew to actually collect data. Like he's going to be taking samples of the bedding material of the cobblestones from different locations. And I've asked Ken Austin to try to locate, obviously we know where the newest repairs are, but I've asked her to locate some repairs that we think were done like in the 70s or 80s. And then some areas where we think the cobbles were undisturbed. And so we can see, what they would have been laid in originally. Does anybody have any other questions about the Streetscape study at this point? Okay, hearing none. So let's talk about the outcomes of the meeting with the HDC and the draft of the MOU and updating the surveys. So I took the Memorandum of Understanding document, which is just it's like a boilerplate document that we got from the Massachusetts Historical Commission. And our goal is to, Holly, can you bring that up on the screen? Oh, I need to stop. No. Can you bring that up on the screen, Holly?
The MOU?
Yeah.
Yep, it's gonna take me a second.
Okay, so our talking with Holly, our thought was, let's not overcomplicate this. Let's not try to create a document that says everything they do and everything we do and tries to draw lines in the sand and all of that. Let's just use the boilerplate, know that it's not comprehensive, but for it's satisfactory for the Massachusetts Historical Commission to know that the different parties are working together to meet the standard that's required to be a certified local government, which is really, you know, what they want to see. They want to make this funding for surveys available to governments that, you know, are set up to do things the right way and are able to, you know, properly disperse the funds and get the work done. So I've taken the boilerplate, it's in the packet, and Holly's bringing it up on the screen right now. The HDC has not had a chance to talk about this yet, but it is on their agenda. And the thought was that we could give this to them for the next meeting and say, you know, are you comfortable signing off on this? So is this the one in the packet, Holly? Because the one in the packet had edits.
Yeah, I'm getting in. I'm sorry.
Okay. I can also, Holly, I can also share my screen and we can edit it in real time.
Okay, I just put up what you had in the packet up on the screen.
That's
Oh,
what I got in the packet, what's showing.
Great. Okay. So, I mean, you guys saw this, it was in our packet. Holly, if you could just scroll down, there are these boxes that you checked. And I think I edited it in track changes mode so you can see how it differs from the boilerplate. This does not look, is that what was in the packet?
Yeah, that's all that I got.
All right, hang on 1 second.
What was in the packet?
Yeah, I understand. I apologize. It looks like something didn't convert properly, maybe. Let me see. I'm trying to pull up the original document. I think I'm spending so much time on my computer that it's actually done. It's like this slow, it's so slow. Okay, I'm Holly, can I share my screen because the document that I have is what I want you guys to see. I'm sharing it now. Okay, can you guys see it?
Not yet.
Still coming up. There it is now.
All right, so this is all boilerplate. And then I just took out everywhere it says Gloucester. I had a comment here on number 8. I said, Holly, Mercy does all of these things now. It would be a larger role for her in communicating with the select board and the Massachusetts Historical Commission. Holly, do you have any comments or concerns about this responsibilities of the CLG coordinator? Or Andrew's reaction to that?
I haven't had a chance to talk to him in detail of this.
I mean, these are things you kind of already do, right? There's some more training.
Yeah. Yep.
And then this says annually. What the HCC seemed receptive to was that we would meet whenever there's 5 Tuesdays in a month with them. And that's, I looked at the calendar, that's roughly quarterly. We would have a joint meeting. And then this is the responsibilities for us. And again, you know, this 4 times a year, that's their boilerplate. Obviously, we meet more often than that. We'd be meeting with them quarterly. And that's basically it. But you can see what the state expects us to do and the federal government. I mean, it doesn't mean that we can't do other things, but as far as the CLG, these are what we things are what we need to do.
What is the timeline for getting this all done?
I don't exactly know. I did talk with Chris Skelly about it, and he says, you know, you have to complete the application, and then I look at it and I, you know, take it to the Park Service, and then you get it. He kind of played down how complicated it was. Of course, we live in a different world now, but
I mean,
do you know anything else,
by the
Holly?
fall?
Yeah, I really don't know. I mean, I think we should just apply and then give them the application and talk to them about it.
Yeah, I think we can submit it whenever we want to. You know, Chris is the point of contact for that, so I haven't seen anything where there's specific time frames you have to submit. You can advise.
Holly, do you think anything in here needs to change?
As far as the boilerplate it goes, the only thing you're changing from the Historic District Commission on here on the boilerplate is the quarterly meeting. I wouldn't see that they would have any issues with that, but of course I would want them to have this document to
Yeah.
vote on.
Well, what I'd like to take a vote on, and I want to get your comments, Holly, first, and everyone's comments, is for us to have this be proposed as the MOU and give it to the HCC so that they can consider it and ask any questions they have, make any comments they have, and through you, you know, we can finalize this.
So Hillary, this is a requirement to become a CLG, is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
And the next step, if they were fine with this and we are fine with this, is we have to fill out the application. Honestly, as I recall, the most complicated thing of the application is just getting everybody's like names and addresses and some elements of your CV and relevant skills.
Hillary?
Yes, Georgia.
I guess I know this is boilerplate, and I know I'm looking at something that pertains more to the HDC than us. But in that last boilerplate phrase on what is in our agenda, it's page 30, it's the however phrase. However, in order to fulfill their function as a CLG, the 2 commissions, that is us and the HDC, must each take additional responsibility for the provision of public participation in local preservation programs. I mean, I can see us doing that. I don't see how the HDC does public participation in local preservation programs. Are we just going to put them up there as a co-sponsor and say, okay, they're doing it? Or should we simply not worry about this because it's boilerplate?
Well, I think they do have public, I mean, they hold a public hearing every week that anybody can come to.
So do you think that'll suffice as a just?
I very much do, yeah.
Okay.
From the point of view of the Mass Historical Commission, I
That's
think
sufficient.
they would be very pleased with that.
Okay, good.
Okay, well, if there aren't any other comments and if everybody feels they understand what this is all about, I'm gonna go. Well, I guess I'll go and ask each person. I just want to make sure everybody can ask whatever questions you have. Nikki, did you have any questions or comments about this? No. Okay, Holly, sounds like no. Did you have anything else you want to say about this?
No, I just wanted to mention that the HDC for their Monday agenda, if they get to it, depending on how long the meeting goes, does have the discussion of the certified local government on their agenda.
Great. So it would be a good time to put this in front of them. Georgia?
Aye.
Okay. Dawn, did you have any comments or questions about this?
No, I think it's great that we do it.
Okay. David?
I don't have any comments. I'd like to move forward.
Okay. Clement?
My only comment is if this is going to be our personal, and I can't scroll back to the beginning, but
Oh.
should we say Nantucket Historic District Commission or Nantucket Historic Commission? Because in the beginning we say Nantucket Historic District Commission. I mean, I don't know. When you say local historic district, we don't have to say local. Oh, okay. There you say local historic district. And if we could call it's the HDC and the NHC, or we call it the HDC and the LHC, I guess is how it is listed now.
Yeah, I don't know why it's like that. The Historic District Commission. I think they say local historical commission because
Which would be us.
Yeah, the Historic District Commission is always going to be local because it goes with the district, whereas the Historical Commission, there's actually a Massachusetts Historical Commission. So from their point of view, we are the local historical.
Okay, okay. So that's the preferred nomenclature. No,
Yeah.
I think it's fine. Right.
At the
Yeah.
top, up here, it also talks about the Massachusetts Historical Commission.
And the Massachusetts, yeah.
Okay. Susan, Tom, did I ask if you had any questions, Tom?
No, you didn't, and no, I don't.
Okay, and Susan? No, and Angus?
My only issue is about schedule, the quarterly meeting, and we can, you know, chew on this. But, you know, just looking at the calendar, September, November, and December, we have that extra Tuesday, but then we go, you know what I mean? Like if they're all bunched up, we might have 3 meetings in the beginning of the year and then not meet for a long time. I'm wondering if there's any other way of making that more regular.
So I'm looking for where I wrote down on my desk the dates. Yes, so it would be Tuesday, September 29th, Tuesday, December 29th, Tuesday, March 30th, Tuesday, March 29th, Tuesday, August 31st, and Tuesday, November 30th. And I agree, it's not ideal, which is why the MOU says quarterly. So I think that would be an aspiration.
So we would kind of go 5 months without meeting between March and August.
Well, for the purposes of the MOU, we're asking to meet quarterly.
I think that's good, and we sort it out later.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to have a look at this and they might say the same thing. And then in which case we'll hear their suggestion.
That's all.
Okay, so could I have a motion to approve this with the changes? We'll just give them this with the changes in it.
So move.
I'll second.
Okay. Mickey Rowland,
Aye.
Georgia Raisman, Susan Handy,
Aye.
Don Michelle,
Aye.
David Silver,
Aye.
Clement Jerkes,
Aye.
and I am an I. Did I get everyone? I think I did. Okay. Great. So all are in favor, carries unanimously, that we will propose this to the HTC. And what we can also do for their meeting, if you agree, Holly, oh wait, stop, is we can send them the whole application. So they have an idea of what we'd be asking them to fill out and what we would be filling out.
For Monday?
For Monday. I mean, the application is not, I just thought they might like, I'm not going to ask them to fill it out on Monday, but they might like to see it. It might be come up as a question.
Okay.
Is that okay with you? Or that's would be perceived as a problem?
No, I'm just curious on logistics though. They've seen the MOU, they've seen, you know, the reasons behind the CLG. I mean, we're not rushing like next week to apply to the
No.
MHC on the CLG. So I would think just, you know, one step at a time, get the, you know, because I haven't seen the application as far as completed. So that would be something that I think that we could handle probably internally.
Sure. Okay.
Have
So
it
we'll
on-
handle the logistics of the application.
Just that's my opinion.
And, you know, I don't think it's that big a deal. I mean, I would just have it with you in case they say, well, what's involved with the application? Because that might be a question. Okay.
So I could have it on
just
hand.
looking to-
Gotcha.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just pulling up our agenda. Okay. The next thing on our agenda, is to talk about the debrief of our meetings and the surveys and methods that part of it. Okay, so here's where I wanted to just have more of an open discussion among the commissioners and also the staff about the meeting and what kind of next steps we want to take, what kind of support Holly would like as far as this objective of getting a program for surveying buildings and areas on Nantucket, which is our #1 priority. We had proposed in the meeting that the Historical Commission and even the staff might start requesting, not the Historical Commission, sorry, the staff of the HDC and HDC might start requesting under the requirement of if it's a, you know, if it's a, you have to provide an accounting of the history of your building, which is a requirement on the application, that we start asking people to complete this Form B, and that we might, you know, put together some more information for the HCC to consider about what it would really entail to complete this Form B. An example of, you know, an adequate Form B, basically trying to rotate from what we do today to more of a best practice with the Massachusetts Historical Commission inventory forms, properly filled out with current knowable information that we can then use to update our own surveys, and the commissioners can use to consider whether or not the building is contributing and what aspects of the building are important. That's kind of what we're doing. So that would be what I call the bottom-up approach to completing our surveys and protecting our historic structures through better information and knowledge. And then the top-down would be, you know, just getting our arms around a program of how we're going to chip away at this very big project. What's the best way to approach it, fund it, work with our partners who are already doing this to kind of bring it all together so it's in one place, that kind of thing. Angus and Nikki, you know, as our representatives on the Historic Structures Advisory Board, you know, do you want to make any, I'd love to hear from you because you're very close to the whole process about.
You know, my feeling about this, we're talking about the Form B, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And, you know, from when we're going to be reviewing it as it comes to us on the Historic Structures Advisory Board, these forms need to be filled out by a professional. They can't be just filled out by the applicant, obviously. So, you know, there will need some consistency as to, you know, it seems like we need to do a number of these forms in bulk rather than piecemeal, because I don't think we want to have the applicants or maybe even their representative or someone that they hire to fill out the form. I think it has to be done by the town. So is this something where we can get funding to have this done professionally, or you know, maybe one section of the town at a time, starting with certain buildings and then working through the town and out to the outskirts?
So that's the top-down part, which we will do. But in the meantime, people are working on whatever buildings they're working on, and we don't have the information. So I'm just kind of pushing the group to think about, could we imagine a world where this sort of information is collected the same way? You know, you require, people don't design their own houses, you know, they have an architect. People don't survey their own properties. They get a surveyor. People don't make their own electrical phone plan. You know, and if the HCC would ask for, you know, a panoramic photo, it's not like the homeowner who's out there taking the panorama of the street. So I understand that this would be, you know, a move that might not make everybody happy. In fact, I'm sure would make some people very unhappy. But I'm asking for the opinion of this group and discussion, including like what it would mean. I guess I'm a little hesitant to just drop the idea outright unless you guys really, really push back on it, because it seems to me that this is something that we could really help by facilitating with resources, a roadmap of how to do it, examples of what we want to see, and that it could actually really help people understand their homes. And, you know, right now, and this is the last thing I'm going to say, and then I'll be quiet. You know, when you get the HDC application, I know some of you are really familiar with this. It has this enormous list of things that you need to provide to the HDC. And one of them is a history of the building.
Can I make a comment?
Yes.
You know, a new house is a new house, but what we're talking about here mostly is someone who's purchasing a historic property. And I think it's important, and I don't know where in the process these words are interjected, but anyone that buys a historic property, there is a responsibility that goes along with that in order to see that that is preserved, unlike what happened on Center Street. And I don't know if we're the agency that, you know, can do that or not. I understand where Mickey's coming from, you know, in terms of, you know, I think it has to be done by someone other than the applicant, because the applicant is liable to just interject whatever it is, you know, is important for them, rather than the historic perspective that we're looking for. And so that adds a whole layer of bureaucracy and who knows, with time and money and everything else. And so this isn't an easy fix.
Hillary?
Yes. Georgia.
So much of this information is in fact available, isn't it, for in one place or another, between the PIN surveys, the historic house, the house histories, the histories that the NHA has done even before the NPT did house histories. I would wonder whether there's some way we could either ourselves or through an intern, or through one of our advisors, start pulling the basic information on this kind of form together for a lot of existing houses in the format of a Form B. So if we ask people to provide this as part of their HTC application, we can give them a form that's heavily filled out already. Is that feasible, or am I dreaming?
I'll answer the best I can, and then I see that Angus also has his hand up. I mean, what Holly has said and what Ray have said and Kathy have said is that there's just no way the staff internally could manage that, keeping up with the pace that's expected.
No, I understand that. It's not something that can be taken on by existing employees. I get that.
Yes, well, I mean, we could certainly have as a priority to have this all be done by the town and by staff, but that's not feasible today.
No, I'm not thinking of town. I'm thinking of either our getting ourselves an intern in historic preservation, or one of us taking on one street at a time and looking at existing sources for this between Clay Lancaster and the PIN structures and the Preservation Trust stuff. It's not undoable. It just requires somebody who's got a nose and an interest in history and architecture to pull it together. I think it's not complicated information. When was it built? What's the main, what's the main purpose? Certainly, I'm thinking mostly of houses, I have to say.
Yeah. So let's continue to discuss that. Angus, what was it that you wanted to say?
Everybody's right. Mickey's correct. We don't really want to do it piecemeal. We want to have a universal system, and like you say, it's a top down. The information is out there, but I think that as you pointed out, Hillary, there are special circumstances and requirements of certain applications, and it's just another one of those boxes that gets checked off on the checklist when you're applying for the HTC approval, or getting the building permit. My point is that this would just be another one, and there should be a list of people who are qualified to do it, just like there's surveyors and excavators and so forth on the island. You have to wait your turn sometimes to get what you need from them, but that's just part of the process. And until we do have a universal system, I feel like the onus should be on the owner to show up with the required information so that we're able to legitimately evaluate what's the impact of what's being proposed for these houses that come before us. In the advisory board, Sconset Advisory and the Historic Structures Advisory Board, it's really obvious when something that is clearly historic arrives application and there's no date on it, or there's a date but there isn't any other information. We know there's more information out there, and it's I believe that it's up to the owner who's proposing it to come up with that information. I don't think that's an impossible ask. Yeah.
I agree. I think that if we could have somehow creates a list of people, professionals, with a resource list, like a surveyor, as Angus mentioned, that it would be somebody, they could be required to use someone from the list, or if they have to propose somebody else, maybe they can show that they're qualified some other way. And then it's a form that we can trust. Otherwise, we just don't know who filled it out and if it's accurate.
So if I'm selling my house to someone and I'm in the historic district, then either the buyer or I have to provide this as part of selling my house?
No, Don, this is just if you want to make a change that you need. the
Okay.
approval.
Yeah.
And you know, the application for the HC, it also says like that certain pieces of information are only relevant if you're making certain types of changes. So, for instance, if you're doing an addition, you need this. If you're changing the paint color, or maybe you're putting in a skylight or something. So there's already an expectation
Right.
that, you know, if it's a historic structure, this needs to be provided. It's just that people really do a bad job of providing it. And they only need to provide certain information if they're really changing the structure, like if it's a demo, or if it's a move, or if it's an addition of over a certain size.
So doesn't the Historic District Commission require that when they look at changes? When I submit my application to change something on my historic building, isn't it required that I provide that or not?
It is. We're just saying that we would like to make the standard of what's provided more specific. So we're saying we want you to use the Massachusetts Historical Commission inventory forms, and that we want it actually filled out correctly. Yes, Tom.
Just to build on what Georgia and Mickey said, in having to defend my neighborhood in the last years or so, I did a lot of research up at the NHA library, and a great deal of what Georgia is talking about and what Mickey is talking about, you would see these surveyor people, the graduate students or whatever, they're doing research for people exactly what we're talking about now. I don't know if they were hired or what, but we could certainly, you know, entertain talking to somebody like that, seeing if, you know, they would want to do it as part of their degree, or, you know, add it to it, and we give them some kind of a letter or whatever. But you know what I'm saying, and you get this done a lot easier, because they couldn't be more helpful up there, is what my point. Libby Oldham, what she didn't know about old houses in Nantucket wasn't worth knowing. It's too bad she's gone, because you know, she really knew her stuff, and so does Marie. And they've got photographs and all kinds of stuff there, and it's they've made it so that it's fairly easy to get the information that we're all talking about right now.
What you all are talking about is exactly what got me into preservation. I mean, I've been doing that since I was 16. The amount of information that's here. What boils down to is our 1989 surveys that the HDC did are not inclusive of all the structures on the island. And the update to the NHL does not include everything as well. It was very cumbersome for that update to include that, so the National Park Service didn't require it. It was very basic. So what you get is people looking at the MHC, Macris, HDC surveys that are not 100% accurate. You've also got the fact that you got to take in consideration that they were done in 1989, and the eligibility of a historic structure of 50 years is not there. Obviously, it's going to say it's non-contributing if it was a structure that was built in the 50s. So my point is that, you know, again, this is another reason why I've been stressing it to the historic district is how, and they are well aware of it, that having the update to our surveys is imperative. But what I think we're trying to find out is how to handle that on a case-by-case basis until we can secure the funding to have detailed surveys done with the Form Bs. And of course, that would require the town to go through the RFP process and all that. I don't know what the answer is in the interim. I can say that I do as much as I possibly can for looking at what the information is available, whether that's looking at Lancaster, Dupre, Foreman, all these different people that are architectural historians before me. Anything that's available at my grasp, if you will. NHA is wonderful. I learned quite a bit from them, especially Marie in the photographics that we have available. So there's information out there, but exactly how do we do this on a case-by-case basis? So that's kind of the thing.
You know,
And yes, burden of proof is on the applicant, but how can this be done? And also, at the end of the day, you know, I just want to remind the commission that the HDC would have to have the final say if this is how they want to go about.
Yes, and hopefully they would listen to our advice. And, you know, I think I do want to keep in mind that this is not just about making some people jump through some hoops. This is about the outcome that we want. And you know, the HCC meetings are public. I don't watch all of them, but I do watch certain cases. And sometimes they have wonderful information and they really appreciate it. And other times they have terrible information and there's like nothing that they feel they can do about it. Or they fall back on this reassurance that they have these surveys from 1989, which is like, you know, falling back on, I don't know if any of you are gardeners, but I have this gardening book from the 1970s that every now and then I look at, and it's like, just put formaldehyde over everything and your problems will be solved. So, you know, so sometimes you have a lot of information and it's really actually out of date. So we want to get the best information that is really relevant to practitioners making important decisions about our historic material and our national landmark and our historic district. I mean, I think about like the Conservation Commission. You don't go to the Conservation Commission and say, well, I really don't know what the composition of the soil is. I'm making this up, but like if you say that, they say, well, go get a soil sample and then come back to us when you have that information, because this is what we need. If you go to the planning board and you want an approval not required subdivision because there was more than one structure that was built before 1955 on your large parcel of land, the burden of proof is on you to provide without a shadow of a doubt that those structures were built before 1955. And if you need to hire an agent to do that work for you, you know, you do. So I certainly think there's lots of precedent for for setting a standard of what is acceptable information when you have some kind of criteria that you're trying to decide about that is important to your mission and your mandate and your purpose. And in the case of the HDC, the very clear mission, mandate, and purpose is to make sure that the historic structures, the changes to historic structures are compatible with their historic quality, which requires knowledge about the historic quality. I'm sorry to take up so much airtime, but I would like, let me just put something out there. Picking up on what Mickey said about putting together some kind of a sample process. You know, what would this world look like? Yes, we're going to do these surveys building by building, area by area, but you know, the HDC has like 3,000 applications a year. Don't quote me on that, but that's the number I'm remembering. And I think they have about 1,000, which are, you know, going to the advisory board. So they're in a historic district or they're a historic structure somewhere. Sorry, they're in Wisconsin or town, or they're a historic structure somewhere else. So there's some subset, it's not everything that this is really relevant to. And there's some work and discussion that is already happening around it. And what we want to do is take the level of all that work up and take the professionalism and frankly, the usability and the quality of the information. I want to ask a question from the practitioners on our board. This Form B, what is on this Form B? Is this useful information compared to what you're currently getting? I mean, are we looking at the right thing and asking the right questions? Anyone want to comment on that?
I'll give it a try. Just judging from what's happened with me at the HDC, all of this information on here, not all of it certainly, but some of it, depending on what issue you're talking about, is pertinent, as well as the locus map and the photograph and all that, the architectural description, historic narrative, and you know, a bibliography or references is all information that I think they can use to make a decision. But I don't know if it's everything that needs to be there. I mean, I don't know if there's more information that could be put on there that would be useful to them, and I think that's a good question to ask them. Because if I'm not mistaken, when we brought this up, the Form B, there were several people, I think it was Val and maybe Steve, that they weren't sure that Form B was, you know, something that they needed.
I think the Form B is very good. I think it's got almost all the information you need. There may be some things that's not included, but and I also still feel that it needs to be relatively consistently filled out. But you know, maybe Hillary, in the meantime, until we get a lot of these Form Bs done in a consistent way, you know, that all these projects go through the HSAB or the SAB. And when there's information that's not submitted on the application, I think that we can, and we do mostly, request the information. And maybe what's lacking at the moment is a system in place where the HDC doesn't, you know, fully review the application until the requests from the HSAB and SAB have been completed. So, you know, the onus is now on the applicant to provide further information beyond the MACRIS surveys to assist us in the meantime. But I think it's just something that the HDC has to take a little more seriously. We often request it, and I can't say for sure if we're often getting it.
Okay.
I agree.
I agree.
I think the Form B has the information that, you know, in an ideal situation, we're getting from MACRIS. But I think useful information too, on top of that, is the updating. It would be great to have something that is a little bit more fluid, so that when alterations and significant alterations are done, that's noted in the survey. Because an original structure might have been valuable and contributing, but after a gut rehab and major additions or moved, you know, its significance may be diminished, and that might work in the benefit of the owner. But it's just good information to have. But sometimes there isn't a survey. Holly knows better than anybody what there is and isn't. But I feel like the Form B is definitely a good standard.
I'd just like to make a point on the Form B and MACRIS. So MACRIS being the Massachusetts Historic Commission's repository, if you will, of all surveys that are done that are in the local district and the state and even national registered districts. And anytime that a Form B has been done through Nantucket Preservation Trust, if there was a preservation restriction done, or PIN did a survey done, they're done through the Form B. So, and then recorded, or not recorded, but then on file with the MHC through MACRIS. So MACRIS holds those surveys from 1989, and then the ones that have been done since, you know, NPT's been doing a lot of them with the restrictions since 94. So, you know, not everything that's on MACRIS is the older 1989 surveys, but not everything has been extensionally surveyed. And some of those 1989 surveys are not necessarily complete either. You go, oh, great, there's a survey, but half of it's not filled out. I do know the Form Bs have been fairly extensive in the information that I've seen.
Yeah, it's not unheard of for the macros to have inaccurate information.
Hi,
Is it-
Darlene. I'm sorry. Sorry, go ahead, Angus.
Oh, did you catch that last thing? Just, I was agreeing with Holly is that macros, it's not uncommon to have inaccurate information there. So it's nice to have, 2 or 3 supplies of information that aren't contradictory.
Yeah. Any other comments? I mean, Susan, did you want to make any comments from any perspective here as our newest member?
Well, I'm kind of jumping in on this and just listening to you all as to where it falls into, the whole process. And I'm really not sure whether there is another section that deals with the underlying historic or prehistoric archaeology in these areas. One of the things that we would like to have, I think, at our disposal is a archaeological sensitivity map showing areas, especially the outlying areas, that could be disturbed or, information be gathered. If somebody, it's so popular right now for everybody to put a basement in, and that's the big concern archaeologically. I know that next door to me at 10 India Street, at the brick house, that several years ago, they were great. They were putting in a patio and uncovered a working brick-lined well, which was actually quite important because there's a huge stream that goes under India Street that people keep shifting. And it's important actually legally because people keep flooding other people's basements, and various things happen as they block the stream and push it in another direction. And they were very great. They capped it and covered it and left it as it was. So anyway, I'm not really sure, and I'd like to look at these a little bit more and see whether that information is gathered here or somewhere else. It's definitely been lacking, and I think is an important part of the puzzle of the historic information on the whole island.
So Susan, you bring up a good point about archaeology. That's one thing that the town has not really gotten into. And I can tell you that the Massachusetts Historical Commission is definitely interested in, that being something that's done. It would have to be done through the form of a bylaw. And to be honest with you, that's a whole different ball of wax compared to what the Form B is. That would be a whole different project to do. But not to say to discourage it at all, but archaeology is a whole different concept. Yeah.
Correct. Yes.
And I think there are inventory forms though for archaeology. But I totally agree with what Holly's saying, that that's not enough, like it's a whole approach.
I've briefly talked to MHC in the past couple of years about archaeology, just to get an idea, and that's what it would take. It would take a bylaw, so that'd be something that we would want to work with, obviously, the entire town and go that route.
Mm-hmm.
Big thing.
Mm-hmm.
But point very well taken, Susan. So what I'm hearing, certainly from the members of our commission who are also reviewing applications through service on the advisory board, Sconset and the historic structures, is that this is useful information and the kinds of things that we want to know. And potentially the advisory, we could propose to the HCC that the advisory board might ask to really have this complete before it's forwarded on, and so they could brief the HCC. And I'm also hearing that we have to think about the experience of the applicant and the quality of the information, and come up with facilitate and define and test some kind of a process, so that we're not just like, saying by decree this shall be, but we're actually, holding folks' hands and telling them what to do and where to go. And that the wonderful benefit of that is that we create more people like Holly who go down a path they didn't necessarily think they were going to go down and fall in love with it. I mean, I know I'm getting a little like rose-colored glasses here, but I think it is true. I mean, I do know people who, my parents bought this house and I saw an ad from NPT that if you have a historic house, you can have a consultation. And so I called NPT, and then suddenly they realized that there were all these unique things about their house that could never be built again today that they really started to value. And that person, was changed as a result of that experience, and that house was persisted as a result of that experience. I also know people who look back with regret, like, we didn't really understand, like, we did all of these things because our architect suggested it and we didn't really know, and they can never get it back. So I think playing this role, because we do need the information, and I'm personally really not happy about a process where we're happy to get bad information. I think we should have a process that makes it, if we're asking for it, if we're bothering to ask for it, and we think it's important, let's get good information. And if we could do a little bit of work to come up with something that from the applicant's view would be at one end acceptable and tolerable, and at the other end potentially fascinating and fun, I think that could really be a good thing for Nantucket.
Yeah.
So it sounds like work needs to be done, and only certain people can do it. So we know that the town is completely loaded already. So maybe we can work on a list of people, whether it's Betsy Tyler or Brian Pfeiffer or, other people who are qualified. Maybe we can come up with a list and see if HTC and the town is willing to start vetting some of this, so that we can have a little bit more accountability for the histories of these houses.
Yeah, I just want to call on David. I mean, David, you're talking to clients all the time about buying historic houses, and
Right.
I'm sure a lot of them are doing it thinking that they want to make changes. What do you think about this?
I say this all the time, that I kind of have to wear a little bit of a different hat in my professional world. But from a preservation standpoint, I'm all for it. I know it's potentially another hurdle and more costs associated with getting these professionals to fill out these forms. So I would have concerns there as a professional, but again, as a preservationist, I think that it's a priority, and that anything that we can do to add to streamline information to help achieve some of the goals that we've set out to do, I think is very important. So I'm all for it. Don't tell anyone I work with.
You're super sweet, David. Yes, Georgia?
That raises a question, though, because I think partly our audience has got to be the real estate community. I mean, I remember even as a preservationist with the NPT, you've got to talk to the people who are selling these old houses. As preservationists, we have to be able to talk to them. And there's got to be some way we can present this as an element of retaining the value of Nantucket and retaining the value of the individual houses. I mean, David is uniquely suited to say, what's the selling point in this? I mean, yes, it's another burden. The same way that a survey is a burden, right? Or knowing where your property line ends, and you're looking at a survey that was done in 1760, and it, defined your survey by the cow or the rock or the tree. But, so this is the same kind of thing. You're dealing with an element of quaintness, an element of uniqueness that you don't get in Darien, but then that's why you're here. So, I mean, maybe part of this in terms of what we put together as our ultimate sales pitch to the town, the HDC, whoever, has got to be an appeal to what realtors are going to be facing, how they're going to sell it, and how the pushback they're going to get from their buyers, and the pushback we might get from them.
Georgia is 150% right.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. May I just ask a question? So this form, once we have this on a house, we create a database. So it's not necessarily every time somebody's,
That's right.
that it has to be completely redone.
Correct.
Correct?
Right.
And where's the data?
Correct, and as well. Correct.
Great.
Oh, I'm just actually looking at this Form B that's in our packet that has been filled out, and it doesn't really have anything. It's just the basics. When the house was built, it's a single family residential, Federal Greek revival. I mean, a picture and a location map. I agree with Angus was saying, if there were any major alterations, it would help to know that, if the interior had been gutted already, it should say gutted interior. And then it has the setting, so where it's located. But I guess the point is you start there with all the facts, and then it says going down that Cambridge, if a house is going to be demolished, then they do a study of the historic assets after that. But what we're asking for, I mean, we'd like to know the historic assets before we can make the judgments on what can be done to the house. So that's not necessarily Form B.
Well, Clement, there's actually a second page to the Form B. So that little illustration was a graphic in our minutes. But if you go down to see the blank Form B, which I downloaded from the MHC website as the inventory form, the second page has like the narrative.
All details, good.
Yeah. It looks like we have a guest who's joined us.
Commission, I'd like to introduce you to William Cook. Signed in.
Hello, William. Welcome. Can you hear us?
Muted.
Hi, Will. Tom Montgomery. We talked the other day on the phone. I'm on the 106, section 106 thing. You and I spoke on the phone.
Well, William, your timing is very good. I imagine that's because Holly let you know that we are almost ready for you. We are just wrapping up a conversation, and then we'll turn to the discussion of it. So I think where we're landing is that we'd like to see these Form Bs used. And while we get the effort together to do the proactive surveys on structures throughout and areas throughout the island, we would also like to find some way to get applicants requesting to do work, including demolish or alter beyond recognition their historic structures, that people start using this Form B, and that there's a little bit of preparation we need to do to explain, interpret, and also make it possible, that help people get this done, make it accessible. So could I have a motion that, we would work on that, or does that make sense?
Yeah.
I would make the motion, but I really don't know what to say. what you've just described has a lot to it. And in addition to that, I think moving a historic house has a lot to do with it too, because once it's moved, it loses all of its historic protection. And so
Yeah.
that needs to be part of it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, what I'm wanting to hear from the commission is that, you know, I would certainly work on this, and I would work with Holly and reach out to you all individually in between our meetings and let the HCC know that we're working on it, to identify some kind of a workflow and list of resources, and maybe even a price, I don't know, but some kind of the kinds of things that I would want to have available if I were an applicant and I was told that I had to do this. And that, you know, we would work on that to review at our August meeting.
Hillary, can I suggest that maybe we form a little subcommittee that we can all, maybe this could go a little more fluidly because of that?
That would be fantastic. So we can have 3 people on a subcommittee without having to, you know, have a quorum.
I would volunteer to be on that subcommittee.
Okay, so Tom and Nikki.
Sure. I'd also volunteer to be on that.
Okay. So we can only have, I think I need to be on it, and we can only have 3 people. And I think we need at least one of our architects on it. So I do think we need Nikki. So Tom and David, you want to duke it out about it?
I'm happy to step back.
I'm into it big time. So I'll fight. I'm
All right.
going
Tom,
We'll have Tom on the committee, but I just want to make it clear, we're not making it like, this is a group decision. So we're going to come back to everybody, and we can then form a new subcommittee or a second review period.
Perfect.
Tag team with Mickey.
Well, we actually can't do that because that violates the open meeting law. Because it would be considered like a rotating discussion. So, but we can swap people out. Sorry.
Can I propose I'll propose a motion that we form a subcommittee of Hillary, Mickey, and Tom to work on our future updating of surveys and the Form B for our next meeting.
Okay. A second?
Second.
Okay. All right. So David?
Aye.
I'm an aye. Nikki?
Aye.
Georgia? I saw aye. Tom?
Aye.
Don?
aye.
And Susan?
Aye.
Terrific. All right. So let's talk about Vineyard Wind. I'm going to turn it. Do we still have William?
He was having a connection issue, so he's gonna try to get back on in a second.
Okay.
Sorry
All
about
right.
that.
I'm going to turn it over to Tom and Holly to update us on Vineyard Wind.
Go ahead, Holly.
Okay.
Good update, Tom.
Tom and I had the privilege. I just for the commission's knowledge, I with the Vineyard Wind or any of the wind reviews, I represent the NPDC, the Nantucket Planning and Economic Development Commission, and of course Tom represents you all. Specifically under Section 106 of the National Historic Preservation Act. With that, looks like Will's here.
Hi, Will.
Hello, sorry, I had a technical glitch. Thank you for letting me join you, and I won't keep you long. It's a pleasure to be here with you. I know we had planned to have a National Alliance Preservation Commission training in May that we weren't able to do for obvious reasons because of COVID. So it's nice to see you today. I spoke to Holly before this meeting and wanted to use this opportunity to update you on where things stand right now with the Section 106 review process that is being conducted by the Bureau of Ocean and Energy Management with respect to the proposed wind farm that Vineyard Wind is seeking to develop off the coast of Nantucket. As you know, Nantucket is a National Historic Landmark, including all three of your islands, Nantucket, Tuckernut, and Muskegon Islands. And as a National Historic Landmark, your resource is entitled to a heightened degree of deference in the Section 106 process because of a little known provision of the National Historic Preservation Act called Section 110F. During our last consultation meeting with BOEM a couple of days ago, BOEM admitted that it has not conducted the review that's required under Section 110F, which we have been advocating for over a year. When my law firm was hired by the town late last spring, we represented Nantucket in some of the early consultation meetings with BOEM. And then what you may know from some of the updates that Lauren or Holly provided to you, the review process was stayed by the Department of the Interior for almost a year. And so BOEM is now playing like catch up and trying to rush through the 106 process to finish everything by the end of the year so that it can issue a permit for the project that's proposed by Vineyard Wind. And we have, throughout the process, made clear to BOEM, as we did the other day, that it's skipping steps, it is taking Section 106 out of sequence, it is not conducting the review in accordance with Section 110F of the National Historic Preservation Act, and a host of other legal errors. So that process continues to move along. Vineyard Wind has agreed to work on various aspects of the project to minimize impacts, such as painting the turbines that you would be able to see in non-reflective paint. Unlike a year ago, Vineyard Wind is now committed to using automatic aircraft lighting detection systems that will only activate the red blinking lights on top of the turbines at night, which would mean, assuming the data is true, that there would only be red flashing lights activated 4 hours per year versus continually flashing lights that would be in place all night. And one of the big aspects of Nantucket's unique and historic cultural heritage is the dark night sky. And so these lighting impacts are important and has special significance to Mariah Mitchell, one of your National Register listed resources on the island. And Mariah Mitchell has been participating in the Section 106 process as a consulting party. In parallel to the 106 process, on behalf of the town, and I can't reveal a whole lot right now just because the settlement conversations are confidential, but we'll share more with you as soon as we're able. We've been having a parallel discussion or set of conversations with Vineyard Wind, the developer, to reach an agreement with Vineyard Wind to give Nantucket more than it would get through the Section 106 process if BOEM were just to approve the permit with a few minimization measures put into place. And Holly may want to share more, but there has been some movement on behalf of Vineyard Wind, more in the direction of a settlement number that we have proposed. We're not there yet. And we are continuing to have dialogue over what that settlement amount would be and what the duration of the payment interval would be. And so we will let you know more when we know more from Vineyard Wind. This has all happened very quickly over the past week because BOEM just recently reinitiated the Section 106 process. And we have some substantial legal leverage right now because later in the month, we will be filing, as the town's legal counsel, substantial comments on the supplement to the draft environmental impact statement, with a particular emphasis on adverse effects to the National Historic Landmark, including adverse visual effects. So in a perfect world, Vineyard Wind would like to see all or most of the important objections that we have raised on behalf of the town and that consulting parties have raised on their own behalves during the consulting party meetings resolved by private agreement. And this is not uncommon. This happens all the time in Section 106. So there was a parallel process like this involving Block Island, where a settlement agreement was reached on behalf of two preservation organizations on the island, where those organizations received mitigation for adverse visual effects. Of course, Block Island and Nantucket are apples and oranges. I don't need to tell you that. They were dealing with a handful of turbines. They're not an NHL like Nantucket is. And there are a whole host of other reasons why they're different. So we're still arguing with Vineyard Wind over what the appropriate comparables would be to help Vineyard Wind place a higher value on how to compensate the town for adverse visual effects that Nantucket will experience. The idea or a way of resolving this, this is continuing a conversation I know the town has been having with a number of nonprofit groups on the island for well over a year, is that if we were able to negotiate a successful settlement amount that would be paid into a community, what we're calling a community benefit fund, that would benefit the entire island with a particular emphasis on historic and cultural heritage preservation, which could take a number of different forms. It would also have some more traditional, conservation and environmental components to it. And the nice thing for you as an island, or as a series of islands dealing with climate change, there's a lot that you could also do as an historic community with respect to climate change, sea level rise, and resilience, in addition to more traditional historic preservation work. And again, it's my understanding, and Holly, correct me if I'm wrong, but there was initial interest and like an initial indication that the Community Foundation of Nantucket would be a willing partner in helping to administer this fund on behalf of the settlement achieved by the town. The criteria that would be put in place in terms of awarding funding for various projects has not yet been determined, but they would follow a set of principles that, again, would have a close nexus to historic preservation and to the natural conservation of the island. So we feel really positive about where that's going. A year ago, Vineyard Wind was not interested at all in Nantucket's idea for establishing this community fund. And so there's been progress there, and that now they're willing to fund it. We're arguing over the amount and the duration of the payments. But that's some good news. I mean, we're moving in the right direction. And I hope that we will be able to provide you with an additional and more specific update in the next week, early in the next week, in fact. We're in the process now of responding to a recent counteroffer by Vineyard Wind. And we will be working on that response today and probably submitting it to them either this evening or tomorrow, with the idea that we'll continue the our settlement conversations early next week. And Holly, of course, will be a part of that that process. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have about 106 generally, BOEM and how BOEM's been conducting the process, or if you have general questions about how about the community benefit fund idea. And thank you for letting me join you.
Thank you very much, William. Thanks for that overview. Tom, did you want to make any comments about the meeting or tell us a little bit about your impression?
I'm Mr. Cook. I'm Tom Montgomery. We spoke on the phone.
Yeah, and I'd like to thank you, Tom and Stephen, especially for the terrific comments that you offered on behalf of your organization during the consultation party meeting. They were spot on.
I'd like to speak on a couple of things. I found out some other information, which you've just reiterated since the meeting. But first of all, I had to really get up to speed on this. There was a lot to read, like 170 pages when I really got done reading all about it. And learning the 2 pages of government acronyms that
you did a great job.
Extremely confusing. There were 43 people on the meeting.
Yes.
38 minutes to introduce everybody.
Yes.
And I noticed my comments were about several things, all certainly relating to Nantucket. There were, I don't know, 18 or 19 photographs taken from the Vineyard and only 14 or 15 from Nantucket.
Mm-hmm.
And my comments to BOEM people were that 4 or 5 of those photographs were taken in the middle of the road. Like you were in the middle of the Cisco Road. It didn't show any views of the water,
right,
what you were looking at. But also, it didn't show any views or any relationships from Tuckernuck or Muskeget, which, and I think I know why, having attended the meeting, is because that's much closer than 14.7 miles, which was taken from Esther's Island. And they also didn't show any photographs taken from Nantucket or Surfside or any of the places that the locals or natives go year-round to watch the sunset. And they were very quiet when I said that. They was very quiet when I brought that up. I also mentioned that just as a pilot, the former pilot, I had problems with the ALDS lights that they were talking about. I don't believe that that kind of a system has worked on land, but I don't think they've ever really been approved on the water yet. And also, I also said that I can't see the FAA. Here they are, putting lights on the top of these poles that are 838 feet above the sea level, but the poles are painted a light white or a gray so as to let them blend into the surroundings. And why would they do that? I would think that they would want a pilot to see that. And we have all these people that come up from New York and come up from, down south in their own planes. And I don't remember because I was a pilot so long ago, but when you fly east or west or north or south, you have to stay 1,500 feet in any direction. And it's the southeast, northwest direction, that pole is only going to be 163 high below your flight plan when you're coming in for a landing to Nantucket. And so if you're in a jet, it just makes a difference. Then the ESPs, which stands for an electrical service platform, they are going to be 148 feet by 230 feet, which I'll do the math for you. That's 30,040 square feet, which is 66 feet above the surface of the ocean. And I mentioned the fact that I was a ranger out at Great Point. And when you're sitting in your vehicle, you're probably on the Gulf or anywhere at Great Point, which is extremely low and constantly getting over it. You're only 6, 8, 10 feet above sea level. But we could see Chatham and the Cape very clearly during the day, and certainly all the lights there at night. And if they're going to have 100 of these things out there, you're going to see nothing but lights at night in certain atmospheres. And I also mentioned the fact that the service platform, the electrical service platform, is going to be on a kind of a grid, which they call a jacket structure, which is crossed like you would see on a bridge, and it looks like an oil rig, basically. And you can't tell me that from Tuckernuck or somewhere close in the west, you're going to be able to see a 30,000 square foot building that's built like that. I don't buy it. And you know, that's what we are going to be looking at from now on as residents of Nantucket. And the last thing that I've just found out that Mr. Cook is talking about is that basically the town is kind of rolled over and they're looking for a price. They've kind of sold our view to the southwest.
That's
true?
just absolutely not true.
Well, that's good.
No.
Because that is going
That's
around.
not true. I'm trying to explain to you a legal process, the Section 106 process, and a parallel process that's designed to get you a better deal than what BOEM is going to give you.
In terms of what? In terms of what? That's what I want to know, because there's a lot of people that are very misinformed about this.
Yeah, well, the way that the Section 106 process is designed to work under the National Historic Preservation Act is that it simply requires that the federal agency avoid or minimize or mitigate adverse effects to an historic resource. It does not mandate any outcome. So a completely appropriate outcome under a Section 106 review process could be the removal of 2 turbines, for example. That would minimize a viewshed impact. I mean, as we all understand, based on the curvature of the Earth, there'll be approximately 11 to 15 of the turbines that might be visible on a clear day.
In the northeast end, right?
Excuse me?
On the northeast end, on our end of it.
Correct. Yeah, from places where they would be visible. So BOEM is very likely to issue this permit based on the fact that Vineyard Wind is willing to paint these turbines a pale, non-reflective color and is willing to minimize light in the night sky by using ADLS. And it's my understanding that the FAA is okay with that. I don't know how that permit process will play out, but they've given indications to Vineyard Wind that will be fine. So it's possible. And if you'll recall, BOEM or BOEM's predecessor approved Cape Wind in the middle of Nantucket Sound, which is arguably a much worse location and in much closer proximity to Nantucket than what we're looking at now. Now that case was litigated, or the administrative process plus litigation lasted almost 10 years. But my point is that the threshold of what a federal agency has to do under the Section 106 process is relatively low. So as long as Vineyard Wind can convince BOEM that it's doing something to make the adverse effects less harmful, then they will survive a legal challenge. That's all that the National Historic Preservation Act requires them to do. Now, sometimes in preservation cases, because certain harms are not avoidable, federal agencies may decide to allow a permit applicant to propose mitigation. Now, mitigation doesn't necessarily mean money. It could mean a number of things. Like in the case of an historic house that might be torn down for a highway project, federal agencies might approve as mitigation, which again would be allowable under Section 106, a plaque that shows a picture of the house that was demolished. So I just want to sort of give a sense that, you know, there's a very low bar about what mitigation and minimization can be and still be legal outcomes under Section 106. Now, because of this, many opponents of development projects of any type, it's not just those of you who might be opposed to a wind farm that, you know, is in a view shed. I mean, this happens a lot. I mean, this happens in, you know, any sort of utility scale development projects, solar, you name it, highway projects, infrastructure projects. Sometimes parties decide to strike a better deal privately outside of the 106 process than they would get within it. And the reason for that, or the reason why that's able to happen, is that the permit applicant may want to avoid litigation. And on the side of the let's just call them the opponents, or maybe in our case, we're preservation advocates, we decide that, well, rather than getting nothing, maybe we would like to have tens of millions of dollars in addition to the minimization measures that the permit applicant is willing to take into place that could be used to fund historic preservation and conservation related projects on the island where it's affected. And I'm just saying island because we're dealing with Nantucket, but this could happen anywhere. So the town is not selling anyone out. The town is trying to get the best possible deal for all of Nantucket's residents, nonprofit groups, preservation organizations, conservation organizations that it can get. Without this intervention, the town and all of the consulting parties were looking at getting virtually nothing and still having to be project built. I think the last number on the table over a year ago was a $600,000 payment and no commitment to using the automatic lighting detection system at night. So there's been a lot of movement trying to come to a substantial number that can make a meaningful difference to Nantucket, to Nantucket's preservation organizations that would compensate the island to the extent that visual impacts are still present. So that's what's happening. It's not an attempt to sell anyone out. It's an attempt to get the town and all consulting parties a good result that they would not get if BOEM moves forward the way that it's moving forward and permits the project anyway at the end of the year.
Well, I think a lot of people haven't read the 1,000-page report that's there, and that's what I've heard recently since I've been appointed. Is they're just asking around, and that's kind of an opinion that a lot of people in Nantucket have.
Yes, Ms. Rayford.
Sorry, I told Hillary I have a hard stop at 3 o'clock, and I apologize, but I have to go.
Well,
Go
okay, Tom, I just wanted to make a comment, which is, I think what we're talking about is that, you know, Nantucket doesn't own this area. So BOEM is going to do what they're going to do with the permitting that they have. And they have to follow a certain process in terms of assessing the impact. And we are a consulting party in advising on an outcome.
Yes.
the outcome could be, you know, we'll take away one turbine, or we'll, you know, make it a foot lower or whatever. So this process is about trying to get the best outcome. I think, Tom, first of all, Tom, I want to thank you for going to the meeting and really doing your homework. That's why we nominated you as our representative.
He was an amazing advocate.
I would like to talk to Mr. Cook further. I'm sorry that I couldn't be on the meeting that you guys invited us to at 1 o'clock, obviously, because I'm here.
I'm happy to follow up with you separately.
Talk to you again. Right.
Absolutely.
I have to go, folks.
Okay. Bye, Tom.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, but to your point, Hillary, it's a really good point. These lease areas are out there. There are 5 lease areas that have already been established. They were selected by the federal government with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. They're there. They've been purchased. Vineyard Wind is the first purchaser of the lease rights to begin the permitting process. It has, again, as I've said, made some significant, I guess, commitments to sort of move the turbines back further away from the islands than it has to, that Boeing would probably require. So just in terms of visual impacts, they are, I think, minimized. We don't all know right now what they might look like on a clear day versus a day where there's more moisture in the atmosphere. I mean, there are issues with the visual simulations. And we have argued that more visual simulations should have been done. But like, if we were to go to court to litigate that, we would lose. And that would not, that would not advance Nantucket's cause. The permit would likely be issued anyway. Or if we even were to win, what a court would do would be, it would just send the process back, the permit back to Boeing to do it again, but could never guarantee an outcome. I mean, you could end up with an outcome that's worse than what we're looking at now. So, I mean, my law firm is absolutely committed to doing whatever we can to protect historic resources first. I mean, that's been our focus all along, but we've also wanted to be like an honest broker with the town in terms of litigation risk and what it can expect to get from Boeing if it goes this route alone and waits for Boeing to issue the permit. It's very likely too that the federal government will be putting limits on monetary mitigation that comes through the Section 106 process. So even if Boeing were inclined to allow that, they might not be able to if some new guidance comes into place. Which is another reason for having a separate sort of parallel negotiation with the company to help buy not only the company's certainty for itself, but also to give Nantucket some guarantees that it's getting a much better deal than it would get if Boeing were allowed to permit the project on its own. It's essentially allowing us to negotiate a type of deal that Boeing would never give you.
Got it.
And as I said, we hope to have some more specific information that we can share with all of you. But the number one, I would say, factor for consideration for how any of this would be deployed, it will start with your historic and cultural resources. And then, there's a list of, I think 4 to 5 sort of conservation-based criteria, but this funding would be very much focused on not just protecting your built environment, but also the island itself, which, as you know, is at the forefront of climate change. So there's a lot you could do in terms of studies and potentially shoreline restoration and things of that nature that would not be possible through a Section 106 outcome. So again, that's why this side, this ability to negotiate separately can get you or can magnify the benefits that you would get, that you would otherwise not get through the 106 process, which might be limited, for example, simply to giving you $250,000. I'm just picking a number out of a hat to do an historic building survey. And that's kind of a classic form of mitigation for unavoidable effects. And we're trying to multiply that for you.
Angus, did you have a question? I saw your hand was up.
I've actually been a proponent of wind power for decades, but I like the idea of it being mitigated as much as possible. And I've heard one number of 100 turbines and maybe only 11 being visible. And if 90% are not visible, is it in the realm of possibility that 100% could be not visible? I'm hearing the benefits. I mean, there are a gazillion organizations on the island who would benefit and make good use of resources as part of the mitigation. But I think, you know, in an ideal world, we just wouldn't see them. Where do you think that'll end up?
Yeah, so it's a very good question. And in my world, I wouldn't want to see any of them either. I don't know. As I understand it, the Vineyard Wind Project, because of its proximity to Nantucket, will be the most visible of any of them. When they build out the rest of their lease area, the second half of the lease area, for example, you're right. You will not see those turbines. The ones that will be visible, whether it's 11 turbines or 15 turbines, the viewshed impact is relatively, it's adverse. And so we can argue about it. But, you know, for example, if it's a cloudy day or there's moisture in the air, they may not be visible. On a clear day, on a sunset, viewing the sunset from Nantucket, I imagine that they would be visible. So, you know, I mean, there's just some balancing that goes on. Vineyard Wind has moved at least one row away from where it originally wanted to put it. So as I mentioned in the 106 process, it merely requires avoidance or minimization or mitigation. So that would be enough for BOEM to say, well, they've minimized the impact. You know, I never personally, like if anyone had asked any of us, we never would have put any of these lease areas near Nantucket. But that decision, that was not our decision. So we're left with these lease areas, and when developers who have a legal right to maximize their full area, Vineyard Wind is not doing that, and therefore under the law has arguably minimized the adverse visual effects. There's not a mechanism in the National Historic Preservation Act to force them to make the turbines invisible. And so they can say now already, well, we could have had, you know, 50 of them visible if we wanted to, but you're only seeing, you know, let's say 11 to 15, and that's minimization, and that's enough. We don't have the ability to force them under federal preservation law or any other law to make them completely go away from site. That just does not exist in our law. Because Nantucket's a National Historic Landmark, BOEM and Vineyard Wind are supposed to use all possible planning to minimize harm, but courts have never said how you measure that. And I imagine they would say now, well, we have minimized harm by moving most of our turbines away from any point of sight. So I hope that answers your question. It's not a satisfying answer to an ardent preservationist, and believe me, I am one. There are a lot of things I would change about the National Historic Preservation Act and NEPA if I could, but we are all working through the legal process that we have.
For your efforts.
William, thank you very much. I had just a couple questions by way of kind of what's next.
Yes.
So it sounds like, as far as the process of negotiating to, you know, create this fund that CFAN would administer, because there's an impact on our coastal historic assets and an impact on our landmark. What can we do to influence, what can we do to register requests or provide ideas about how whatever you negotiate might be effectively deployed for preservation?
Yeah, that's a great question, Hillary. Holly might have caught this on the last part of the call, and sorry if you didn't, Holly. I'm happy to share with you our discussion. The idea right now is just to get general buy-in by the consulting parties to this idea of, if we can reach a number that the town agrees to, and the town, is the only one of the consulting parties that secured legal counsel is, moving forward this process. If the town comes to an agreement with Vineyard Wind about an appropriate figure and about a payment duration that makes sense to the town and that will be meaningful, not just to the town government, but to the island and to all of the nonprofits like yourself, or nonprofit groups and historic commissions like yourselves. The idea would be right now is that we want to achieve buy-in, and I understand that we have that in principle to the idea of this funding being used or being deployed by the community foundation. I mean, they would have a carve out, this funding would be put in reserve for historic preservation and conservation and climate change and resilience work. The exact details on how that would be deployed have not yet been worked out. But we have already suggested, and indeed happy to share with you some of these thoughts. There'd be a list of funding criteria. Again, you would have to show a nexus to historic preservation and conservation as some part of the, let's just call it a grant application for lack of a better word. There might need to be some prioritization early on. For example, to assist an organization like Mariah Mitchell, which is a National Register listed resource that might not be able to conduct research during the construction phase of the wind turbines where a greater amount of lighting is being used at night. And so they might be experiencing a more, immediate harm in a short run. So I know there's been some, conversations about, how do we deal with some of your groups that might have more of an immediate need than others. But there would be a board that would be made up of, I imagine, representatives of your various organizations. There's also the thought that the town would receive as a carve out, not money to go into the general fund of the town, but it would be sort of on reserve to be administered by the fund and to be deployed for all of the reasons that I mentioned: historic preservation, conservation, and things of that nature. Those are the, I guess, general principles that we've been discussing with groups. We spoke before I joined you with the Nantucket Conservation Foundation, the Nantucket Historical Association. I'll have a separate call with Mary Berger. And I'm sorry, Stephen Welch was also on the call. I mean, we've been speaking with all the various consulting parties that have been part of the Section 106 process. Mariah Mitchell, obviously one of them. They were on our call today and they agree with the concept. Cormac Collier is also in agreement, we'll say, with the concept and the idea that once we have the settlement, then we'll work towards creating a process whereby we could deploy these funds in an appropriate way. There's just no way to do that right now unless we know what number we're dealing with and the duration of the payments. Once we have that set in place, then we would be able to hammer out how the administration of the fund would take place. Does that help answer your question?
Yes. Yeah. So it seems like we stay tuned. for that part of the discussion. Certainly, I have a couple ideas, following up on the municipal vulnerability study that we're working on, which is going to come up with a bunch of recommendations, which we're then have to implement, and we'd like to provide support to make sure they get implemented. Holly?
Yeah, Holly has mentioned
all
that. Absolutely.
that, yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
There's
I just want to I just want to make a point that, with Will and his team, we're in really, really good hands. This is unprecedented in this country. And being a National Historic Landmark, it's got more value to us than we realize. And unfortunately, I think for this project that's coming forth, we're kind of stuck in a aspect that, some of these BMPs, these best management practices from the federal government side have not been worked out. I'm not particularly pleased on that, but at the same time, we need to kind of balance out the pros and cons of where we're at. And I think that's where we're at.
That's a good point, Holly. The law is the way that it is. We're dealing with the hand that we were dealt. And just to make sure you all know, we are an historic preservation and cultural heritage law firm. I mean, we do this work exclusively. I was Associate General Counsel at the National Trust for Historic Preservation for 8 years. This is what we do. We're approaching this with an eye to protecting everything we can about the integrity of your island or islands. We're not just lawyers trying to strike a settlement. This is all being done through the lens of historic preservation and cultural heritage, but also with an eye towards pragmatism in terms of understanding how these federal review laws like the National Historic Preservation Act and NEPA work, and how far we can push, and knowing when we need to pull back.
Well, Tom had to step away, but I'm very confident in Tom's knowledge of landforms of Nantucket. He's really unique on this commission in terms of his perspective from the sea, his perspective from the air, his lifetime of experience walking and driving along every bit of the coastline, and is, a very, as you said, a very strong advocate. So I hope you'll use that in your negotiations.
Yeah, no, I'm very pleased that he could join the other day. I am also a huge fan and lover of Nantucket. I visited for 20 years with my family growing up. I understand it's a special place. I envy you that I don't live there with you. So I just want you to know we're on your side. We will keep you updated through Holly next week. And if you think of any questions or concerns, feel free to email me directly or send them to Holly and she can forward them on to me and I'll get you an answer right away.
Thank you. What kind of timeline should we expect?
Yeah, I think things are moving. Yeah, good question. Things are moving pretty quickly. After a 1-year suspension in permitting that was put in place by the Department of the Interior, BOEM is moving very fast to complete the permitting of this project by the end of December of 2020. So we're on this accelerated schedule that we don't have the ability to stop. We're doing what we can to slow it down. But it's just been in the last week that the Section 106 process got started again. And we've already appeared on behalf of the town to give some initial comments about some of the insufficiencies in the visual impacts analysis. I think if Vineyard Wind wants to strike a deal, they will want to do it soon before the town and other consulting parties file comments on problems with what's called the supplement to the draft environmental impact statement. So that they want to get buy-in before some of these key deadlines happen at the end of this month. So we anticipate sending a counter offer to Vineyard Wind on their latest response. Like I said, tonight or in the morning. I imagine we'll have another phone call scheduled with them on Monday. And Holly, I'll let you know in hopes that you can join that call as well. So I think things are moving quickly, Hillary, to answer your question. And I mean, we will have a substantive update for you one way or the other by early next week.
Great. Well, thank you so much. I do feel that we're in good hands, and I'm grateful to Holly and to Lauren Sinatra for being all over this. And
They've done a great job.
This is something that the train is rolling, and we'll leave the station, and let's make sure we take care of what we have.
Yeah, one final point I want to just mention, we're also pushing very hard, and this would be a condition of any settlement, that when the lease term expires and if these wind turbines are ever decommissioned, that they will be removed. So I just wanted to you to know there are a lot of non-monetary components to the settlement agreement that we're working on for you.
Things we wouldn't necessarily think about. I mean, you'd assume they take broken junk with them, but
yeah. Okay. Thank you for letting me join you. Okay. Have a nice day. Good luck with your meeting. Bye.
Bye-bye. Was there any, I didn't mean to not open the floor for questions. I'm just conscious of the time and his time as well as our council. Did anybody have any follow-up questions for Holly or discussion about this? Okay, seeing none. We're getting to the end. Briefing other town committees and boards and other brief new business. This is just stuff I want to talk about. So now that we have our mission statement and we have our priorities, I want to dial up the effort and hopefully the engagement with other boards. I've reached out to the select board. We're really overdue for engaging with how we advise the select board. So stay tuned. Hopefully we'll be able to get some time with them. And I also would like to meet and brief the finance committee, which has a meeting next week, I think. I actually don't have the contact information for the chair of the finance committee. Holly, do you know her well? Or?
Denise?
Yeah. Is that who the chair is? I don't know.
I'm pretty sure it's Denise. Yes. You want me to reach out to her?
Yeah, find out, we'd love to just come, not take up a lot of time, but say we're here, we've been here a year, this is our mission, this is what we're working on, we need money, that kind of thing.
That's the most important one, Hillary.
Yeah, I won't say like that.
How about I can send her an email and copy you, Hillary?
That would be
okay.
Great. That would be terrific. Thank you, Holly. And then I am meeting at Clement's invitation with the chair, Betsy Grubbs, the chair of the Sconset Trust. So we're gonna have a lunch. I'm really looking forward to that because I don't know her. And I'm also, this is a little bit of the update, but I just took a personal interest in the railway trail. I don't know if we have on the commission any other railway trail fans, but I think it's a really cool thing that we have this railway trail, and it's sort of secret at this point, but there's lots of really neat things about it. And so I reached out to Lee Saperstein because I knew that he's passionate about it, and had a conversation with him where he told me everything about the railway trail. And we decided that I would attend the next Roads and Rights of Way committee meeting, which is happening the third week of the month, just to find out, can the Historical Commission help here? Can we help get some momentum behind the project, tell the story? Can we help? And I thought I would listen and learn and get some ideas going and report back. Does anybody else share any interest in the railway trail? Oh,
I'll just tell you that the town has transferred some land down at Tom Nevers Pond and along the beach, and part of it is transferred to the Sconset Trust. Okay. Part of it is at the railway bed.
Oh, cool.
So that, yeah, so I could take you down there. We could have a field trip to the railway bed.
I would love that. Let's do that.
Also, the NHA, when they did their Scoutset exhibit, someone recreated a whole rail line of where the old railway used to go. So they still have that at the NHA.
That's cool. Well, I really want to get the background of who's worked on this and what could it be for the public, because I think the more opportunities to create spaces where the public can walk in the path of history, the more they'll learn and appreciate and experience what we have here. And it doesn't seem to fall squarely in one organization. Like, it touches the Sconset Trust, and it touches the NHA, and it touches Roads and Rights of Ways, and it touches the Conservation Association. So maybe the Historical Commission, you know, could pick up some of these threads and put it together. So are there any other commissions or groups that we might want to, you know, one big one actually is the Nantucket Preservation Trust. I mean, we really complement each other. There are things they do that we can't do. There are things that we do that they can't do. I did ask several times if they wanted to be the home of this preservation engineering study, because they're doing the other study for the streetscape, the complementary study to that. And because they were so helpful really when, you know, a year and a half ago when I was getting interested in this and helping me with that. So, but they've said without any question, they do not want to play you know, be a home for that project, or, you know, have a role really in executing on that project. But nonetheless, you know, I'm thinking about how, well, if we want to encourage applicants to do these Form Bs, I mean, that's a real like expertise that they have. So we would, I think, want to involve them with that.
On that point, Hillary, sorry, I just want to let you know that I do reach out to NPT whenever there's a proposed, you know, demo move or what have you on any type of historic structure. I reach out to them to say, hey, do you have any information that I'm not?
Yes, and I know you do, and you, Holly, because you shared that before, and thank you for sharing that with everyone. So I'm sure we'll talk about this at the subcommittee level, but could we, you know, formalize that or get the applicants to do that, even when it's something like in addition. So, you know, I have found, I expected there to be more enthusiasm for a joint venture, so to speak, or partnership, so to speak. Angus, I know you're on the board. Would there be an opportunity, and Mickey, you're also on the board, would there be an opportunity for us to come and talk to the board? Is there anything there that we should be working on? What do you all think?
We can certainly ask.
Okay, well, would one of you like to be our ambassador? Okay, thank you. I mean, just let them know we're not singling them out. We're going to meet with lots of people, and we'd love to put them on our roadshow. Of course, Mary's on our resource and advisory committee, so you know we do have that formal relationship. The only other little project that's been percolating came to us through Fran Kartunen, who has a friend who lives over on Angola Street, who's very interested in having some kind of a memorial or a marker, not a memorial, a marker to Arthur Cooper, who there's a whole story from the Fugitive Slave Act and saving him from being returned by a group of agents that came up to collect him, and just this history of Angola Street as being separate from New Guinea. So I asked her if she'd work on that and make a proposal, and then if she could make a proposal, we could look at it and maybe like take it up the food chain and see how we could make something happen there. Does anyone, I just wanted to make sure I just wanted to tell you about it. I don't have anything to share with you, but she is sending you stuff, and hopefully I will have something to share. Does anybody have any experience with that area or thoughts to share about Angola Street? Holly, are you saying something? Okay, thumbs up. Okay, all right. Are there any other comments, or should I ask any other comments for our meeting today? No. Okay, thanks for sticking with everybody. Could I have a motion to adjourn?
A motion to adjourn the meeting.
Okay, David.
Second.
And Angus second. Mickey. Aye. Georgia. Aye. Clement.
Aye.
Don.
Aye.
And I am an aye. Well, great to see you all.
Thank
Thanks.
you. Take
So,
care. Thanks for your leadership, Hillary.
All right, thank you. Our next meeting is August 21st, and I think we have our marching orders. So.